This video series is intended for cybersecurity professionals and system administrators in a domain environment. Having been a system administrator and now cyber professional, how are we able to better understand our environments, not just from compliance, but cybersecurity? Because there is a difference. You can be the most compliant environment using best practices, DISA STIGs, ISO standards, HIPAA, PCI, etc. But without applying cybersecurity, you could be at risk. These videos are not intended to differentiate between compliance and cybersecurity. However, hopefully to get you thinking differently about the environments you support. There's a plethora of information on the internet, and you should search and develop your own conclusion between compliance and cybersecurity. No two environments are alike. Whether you're standalone, LAN, WAN, small, medium, large, local, cloud, or hybrid, and your capabilities and features. So these scripts will get you kind of a baseline, 101 to your environment and actually give you the tools and resources to build upon it. So why PowerShell? Whether, cyber or administration professionals, we need tools to better understand our environments and the changes within our environments. Since PowerShell is native to Windows, it's free. The only cost to your organization could be some training. And if you're like me, you're impatient, let's just jump in and get to the results. So this testdomain.ps1 script checks the accessibility for all of the computers in your environment, all the Windows computers, we'll say. I am going to add the disclaimer as always, run at your own risk. I am relatively new to PowerShell, so for PowerShell gurus, help us newbies out. How can we improve? The scripts I developed are non-intrusive, meaning they do not make any configuration changes. So what we're going to do, we're going to get ready to jump in and get going. First thing I want to do is go in and delete the previous run, just because, so you can see how it creates it and sets it up. So by default, it will drop all the logs, and I'll show you that here in a minute. I have a folder set up, T, GitHub, Active Directory. You can see the test domain script. And because I have not modified my execution policy, as many of you might not have either, I'm just going to go ahead and run it in a way that you would be able to run it without modifying your execution policy. So with that, make sure you're at administrator command prompt, run PowerShell, execution policy bypass, tag file, and the file name. Okay, so now we have some results. I'm going to flip back to the command prompt window for a moment, just so you can see kind of what's displayed. It comes up, lists our domain controllers, computers that are online. If any were offline or inaccessible, it would come up and say computers offline in red and give you the computer names. You can see that it saved log file, C logs, my domain name, date timestamp, master log. And if you recall, I deleted this when I started. So now you can see how it kind of creates the folder structure. Every run will create a new date timestamp. And in this case, the only file that was generated was master.txt file. We also, in the script, has a measure command, so we can see the script took 24 seconds to run. Again, just to kind of illustrate. Okay, let's jump into the results. So just as we talked about at the command prompt, we can see all the computers that are online, and it tested against each of these. So the first test, are they pingable? We can see that each of the computers in the domain are pingable. Ping is not required, but it is very helpful when you're running PowerShell when you're using test connection. By default, Windows ping is off, but in a domain environment, generally it's allowed. So you might get some mixed results there. Again, not necessary for the scripts, but for testing purposes, that's why it's there. All right, when remote management port test, we can see it requires port 5985. So we did a test connection to this port, and we can see that all of them are accessible. Great. If they're not, I would look at things like, firewall, or is the service running? Get service. Just because the port's open does not necessarily mean that the service is always running. So we run out and do a test on that. 80 computers. So because we're kind of doing a test and to demonstrate some of the power, this portion of the script went out and retrieved all of the computers within the active domains. Since this is a lab environment, I tried to put a little bit of mix in here, so you can see we even have a Linux 1 RHEL 7, but we did not test against it because our tests are for Windows computers, and that's all. The other thing to take note when you're looking at these are what OUs are they in, right? So we can see that Linux is not even in an OU, it's just in a container. Same with Workstation 2. So when you're trying to set up your group policies, this could present issues. Also, I would look at last logon date. Any dates that are outside of 15 to 30 days, I would start checking, are they not connecting to the domain? Are they orphaned, rogue? What are they? Why have they not logged in over 15 days? Get Windows versions. So went out and propagated the, all of the computers. And it's what I look for is the consistency. We can definitely see that everything is on 21H2. All of my workstations are. So again, good stuff. If I have one that's outside of this, I'd be questioning why. Now my baseline has changed. Windows shell version. This is important when you're obviously running PowerShell. This script is set up for 5.1 or higher. So if it were 5.0, you would not get anything. And again, this applies to Windows version. Is my PowerShell the same? To be able to execute the scripts, you need the remote administration tools installed. You can see here that I only have it installed on the one computer. Only the computer you're running from needs to have it. So I don't have to install it on all of them, so I did not. It's only on this, and this is Workstation 1. This is my admin computer, which we're on right now. If you need it installed, I would recommend logging in locally to the computer, and here's a PowerShell script you can run to install it for you, or you can always go through the add features. Group policy features. In a domain environment, I would recommend that each of the computers have the group policy module installed. You can see here I have it installed on all. The servers return a little bit different, and by default the domain controllers have it. I don't have a member server, so I'm not able to test it yet. But you can see all of my results return in a positive manner. If you need it installed, and the reason, again, I would recommend log in local, execute it here, or go through add remove optional features. I had some mixed results trying to push it out through PowerShell between permissions and accessibility. So it's just easier one time, just go in, install it, and done. So if your computers are set up and you can reach them like this, you will definitely be able to run the domain.ps1 script. Okay, so we're going to jump in and walk through the script just a little bit so I can talk about a few things that are in here so that you'll better understand. So of course all the directions, the GitHub. I do want to recommend the GitHub README. This walks through and will show you how to set up the group policy from a domain controller, along with enabling remote management and the firewall settings. So again, just additional information to hopefully help you set it up and get it running quickly. So what I've done is broke the script that we just seen the results down into multiple functions. And it's what's nice about the way this is constructed. If there's one in particular you don't want to run, you just jump in and comment it out, save it, execute it, and that part of the script will not execute. And I've kind of given that example up here to see, and we'll see the example function just a little bit below. So some other notes. You must be an administrator to execute script. If not, script will exit. You must be on version 5.1 or higher. Otherwise, script will exit. And you must be in a domain environment. If it does not recognize the domain, again, script will exit. If you remember at the command prompt, we seen that it took 24 seconds, 24 seconds right here to execute. That's just part of the command here, and it's wrapped in braces for the entirety. A few things we do is grab a bunch of variables. What's a domain name? What's the computer name that's actually running the script? Here's the log path. So if you remember cod logs, domain name, then get date timestamp. The nice thing is if you want to set up to another location, whether it's an UNC path, please do so. You will need to use this sort of path when you set up the domain PS1 script. Okay, so we use a counter for the write progress, the progress bar. The output file that we've seen, master.log, we can see that here. So that's the name of the file. Name it whatever you'd like. If you remember in the header of the file, all of that information there is being captured from here. So what is the path we're executing from? What's today's date? The title, name it whatever you want. Then for reference, where did I execute it from? Pull a list of all the domain controllers. We've seen that in the window. All the domain computers. Now, what I've done here, and you can see that there's some commented out, if you have a very large environment, you might, hopefully the script is very efficient and should not take long to run against your environment. But let's say you only want to run it, against a few select computers. Well, you can jump in here and say, I only want to run it on these machines here. Just by commenting one or more out. Same thing down here. This particular one, if you want to just say, hey, give me a random 3, 4, 5, whatever you want, just randomly select. I've built that capability in here for you. So now we take the results of the domain computers here and we say, hey, what is currently online? And I go right down to the core. We're looking for the WinRM service because that's required. So from the get online, we'll display what's online, then we'll also display what's offline. So that's what these two parts of the scripts do. On the screen, you've seen where it displayed the domain controller, offline, online, and same in the file. So that's what this section here does. So let's jump into the functions. So this quick little function here, if you remember up under tasks, I had a function called example. So if you just wanted to comment it in, out, to see how easy it is, that's the only reason it's there. Here's the part of the script that runs for pingable computers. So in a nutshell, it says for all the computers in the domain, I want you, for each computer in the domain, run out and ping it. Not just online, but all computers. Same thing with WinRM service. This one is looking for only what's online. WinRM test, we're reaching out saying do a test connection for all of the computers in the domain. So there is a little bit of a mix between when I'm using all the computers in the domain, all the Windows computers in the domain versus just what's online. Because we want to do specific tests. For the online ones, you've seen the results. So, we're kind of saying, hey, give me the Windows capability for this particular module. Then it will return the display. Same thing with group policy features and get AD computers. So again, this is just kind of walking through the script a little bit. Where is it at and what's running? Get AD computers is a good one. You can see we get all the domain computers like star, where it's different from the above. Here we say where operating system is like Windows. So when we say domain computers, we're only running against the Windows computers. And in the AD computers, we're saying, I want to see all of the computers. That's where we've seen the Linux. Then we're selecting the name, operating system, whether it's enabled or not, then last login date. and its distinguished name, which shows us what containers or OUs it's in. Reach out and get the Windows version, PowerShell version, and then at the end we launch Notepad. For each task in task, this is where it runs the progress bar, then also puts a separator in the text file, then it will bump to the next task, bumping the counter by 1, and then you see the final, what was written to the screen for the final output. So that's kind of the script in a nutshell. Hope you enjoyed, and look forward to seeing you in the domain.ps1 script to really get down in the weeds.